This year was certainly something. A whole year dedicated to everyone's favorite hedgehog, Shadow. Edgy the Hedgie had a whole year dedicated to him, and it's been such a cool sight to see. The marketing for this has been intense. Shadow merch has been intensified, Sonic Symphony included Shadow music. Hell, they even recreated his bike from the 2005 game. I just hope it doesn't have the same fate. And all of that leading up to the two big hitters for Shadow. Sonic Movie 3 coming out later in December, which I am super excited for, as you could tell.
Oh my god!
And Sonic X Shadow Generations, which I was also excited for.
Oh, what the fuck?
But just before the official announcement, rumors were already starting to trickle in about a potential Sonic Generations remaster, and my first reaction to that news was,
okay, but why though?
Don't get me wrong, I love Sonic Generations, but it's already on PC and can run at 4K 60 FPS. Granted, it did have a lot of problems as they stopped updating it over time. I can't even begin to tell you how many times I got this stupid error trying to boot the game. And I understand for console owners wanting to play it on their newer consoles, but my confusion comes from demand. Look, you'd be hard-pressed to tell me that more people weren't asking for Sonic Unleashed to be remastered forever now. And that game isn't even on PC, so yeah, I get it. Generations really hasn't gone anywhere and the game is still alive and well, especially thanks to the insane amount of mod support. But, yeah, who knows? Maybe Unleashed will be the next game to get the remastered treatment.
Want some chocolate?
But it all started to make sense when we heard more about what they had planned. See, this wasn't just a Generations remaster, but an expansion to include a new Shadow story with his past. And I get why they wanted to do that. Movie 3 is on the horizon, and they not only wanted to capitalize on that hype, but to also introduce people to Shadow's backstory if they didn't play the 2005 game. And in hindsight, the Time Eater is kind of the perfect excuse to do that. But oh man, the 2005 Shadow game. Look, as an 8-year-old kid, I ate this shit up. I even played the Flash games leading up to its release. The edginess, the serious tones, the guns making me go. Now, as much as I liked this game, I won't deny that even back then, I thought this story was goofy as hell. And no, I'm not talking about the mission where you have to kill the president. Yes, that was a real thing, Jesus Christ. But Shadow being tied to aliens felt a little unnecessary. But hey, you know, it wasn't a big deal that they wanted to add lore to Shadow's creation. The real problem is that it didn't really go anywhere after this game. Hell, to even learn the truth from this game, you had to play through it 10 times. Point is, the game's structure and having you choose your own path, while cool in concept, made it hard to understand the truth of Shadow as a character. You essentially had to play through 10 non-canon endings just to see the real ending. And if you're anything less than a hardcore Sonic fan, you probably didn't have the patience to go through that. And like a long list of Sonic games, it was yet another title story that would seemingly be ignored by Sega. Until...
Wait a minute! Yo, Black Doom! Black Doom, what the fuck?
Alright, you have my attention. So while Sonic goes through his story as a result of the Time Eater, Shadow goes through his own adventure. So with that backstory out of the way, what does this game bring to the table? And more importantly, how does it improve the gameplay formula established in Sonic Frontiers? Oh, right, I guess it's worth mentioning that even though this game is bundled with Sonic Generations, the Shadow Generations portion is built off the same engine as Sonic Frontiers. That's not at all a bad thing or unexpected, as I'll go on to explain later. But keep that in mind, while both of these stories are linked, they both have two separate gameplay styles. Which, speaking of stories, let's start with what we are all mainly here for, Shadows. If you want to avoid story spoilers, I will put timestamps on the screen now. I guess it is proper to start here, but they did include a short animation in the game that briefly covers Shadow's backstory, which I think is really nice. Just so those who didn't play the old games can jump right into the action as well. It covers Joe Robotnik making Shadow the ultimate life form, Shadow's life on the Ark with his best friend Maria, and the tragedies that occurred up there, like Maria getting killed by the gun soldier using what looks to be the Force. It also talks about the fallout as the result of her death, Shadow's revenge plans in SA2, as well as his sacrifice. Oddly though, they don't talk about his amnesia after SA2. Huh, maybe they forgot. They also discussed Black Doom and how he was tied to Shadow's creation, as well as his ultimate defeat by Shadow. It's brief, but an effective backstory. But before we jump into the game, we still have another animation to talk about, this time regarding Shadow Dark Beginnings, a 3-part prologue animation that has become very common with Sonic releases over the past few years. This animation was incredible. You could watch my reaction to all 3 parts, with part 3 in particular making me damn near cry at the end. It goes over more of what we've come to know with Shadow's backstory, but with a very, very dark tone. But the crux of the story here is that Shadow had a large series of nightmares while sleeping in view of the Ark. Suspicious of this and suspicious of what he was seeing in those nightmares, he believes this could be the work of the Black Arms. And sure enough, the final shot is Black Doom on board the Ark. I think it's implied that Black Doom was able to regrow himself and become reborn using the larva that was already on the Ark that we've seen in the flashbacks. With that context, we finally enter the game starting with a cinematic cutscene of sorts, and just think about that. When was the last time we had a Sonic game with an in-game cutscene that looked this good? I want to say this is on par, in fact even better than what we would see in the in-game cutscenes in Sonic Unleashed. The character models look great, the lighting and shadows are far better than what we are used to for cutscenes, and immediately you can tell that lessons were indeed learned from Sonic Frontiers. And indeed, a whole lot of money was made. I mean, this one shot alone of them actually animating Shadow's eyebrows and not just lazily relying on eyelids like they've been for years is proof that improvements were indeed made. This looks amazing, and I hope the team continues to do this into the future. Well done, Sonic team. Well done. It starts with Maria and Gerald waking Shadow up from his pod. We then fast forward to present day, or whenever Sonic Generations happened, which I guess is a few adventures back now that I think about it. In fact, it's probably better that I just don't think about it. But as Shadow is investigating the Ark at the same time as Sonic's birthday party, sure enough, some anomalies start to take place. During our first level, Black Doom reveals himself and starts messing with Shadow's reality. He soon finds himself in a room on the Ark that contains continuity. I mean, the fake Chaos Emerald Tails made in Sonic Adventure 2. After picking it up, he gets interrupted by the Time Eater, which proceeds to do what it's done before: erase all of time and space with Shadow in this white void containing levels from his past. Omega, who is doing what he always does, hunting Eggman, was sent here as well. One level later in the Ark Act 2, something odd starts to happen to Shadow. He begins to be corrupted by this odd energy, creating a mutation that gives him wings. While odd, Shadow does feel like these somewhat feel natural. Back in white space, Shadow sees what looks like Maria and Gerald off in the distance. He doesn't immediately believe what he's seeing, calling it nothing more than a dream, due to their demise long ago, and because he already had enough of that shit just before entering the Ark. Instead, opting to focus on the big evil eyeball literally staring at him in the sky. You know, can't say I wouldn't do the same. After obtaining new mutations like the Doom Spear, Shadow then goes through Rail Canyon, and soon after, fights the Bio Lizard after getting the Doom Blast. The world around him expands to show more areas not only from Shadow's past, but also his future. Black Doom appears and tells Shadow that he's made excellent progress so far, and that while he may have defeated him in the past, the Black Arms lived on, and that—
Oh god, wait, Shadow, stop! Shadow, wait!
Rather than fighting now, Black Doom tells Shadow that he's not ready yet, and once he's been perfected, then they will have their reckoning. Shadow then goes through another mutation, obtaining the Doom Surf, and goes through Kingdom Valley. Oh. Hey, Big. After going through Sunset Heights, Shadow sees Maria getting chased by some of Black Doom's aliens, at which point, Shadow saves her and is shocked to see that it's not just a dream. That's actually Maria. And soon after, Gerald shows up as well. Without hesitation, Maria asks Shadow where he learned to fight like that. Shadow quickly realizes, just from that question alone, that they must have been sent here sometime before the Ark's disaster. Before their demise. And this is some great writing here because, yeah, that would make sense. Before then, Shadow really wasn't that much of a fighter. The life on the Ark was laid low, hanging out with Maria, going to school with her, wandering the halls of the Ark looking for that last artificial chaos son of a bitch. By realizing this, he wonders if he could change their fate before telling them everything is going to be fine and running off. But you can tell from Gerald, he knows that there must be more to the story that Shadow isn't telling them. After that point, Shadow goes off to fight Metal Sonic Overlord, and after his defeat, the anomaly in the sky called Black Moon is becoming much more awakened and ominous. Shadow returns to Gerald and Maria and tells them that he somewhat feels a connection to that thing in the sky, at which point Gerald tells him that's indeed the power of Black Doom, explaining that he made a deal with him to create Shadow. So both his power and what's in the sky are indeed connected, further explaining that Maria's illness couldn't be treated on Earth and opted to bring her aboard the Ark. There, he tried to create the ultimate life form to try and find a cure for Maria. This resulted in the Bio-Lizard at first being the prototype for Shadow, but it was considered a failure. But I mean, really, how much of a failure could he be? I mean, he looks kind of cute with his, meat gills. You know what, never mind. With the first failed attempt at trying to create the ultimate life form, Black Doom showed up and offered Gerald the miracle of chaos control, and through his DNA, created Shadow. But Black Doom did not do this for the case of saving Maria, but for creating the ultimate warrior for him, one that could be used as a weapon. So these new mutations that Shadow has been experiencing are all part of Black Doom's grand design, and as Shadow gets stronger with each mutation, so does Black Doom. This doesn't faze Shadow, of course, and vows to use this new power as his own, which soon after, Shadow gets another mutation, the Doom Morph, and goes off to the next stage, Chaos Island, a level that is from Shadow's future, I think. Along the way, he runs into Sonic, where both the story in Sonic Generations and the story here merge. Sonic asks for the Chaos Emerald that Shadow has to defeat the Time Eater, but Shadow, dealing with his own problems at hand, refuses. So they do what any friends do in a healthy relationship. They fight for it. Here we honestly get one of the best in-game action animations I think I've seen in this series in a long time. I really enjoyed this. During the fight, Shadow realizes he could totally destroy Sonic using his new Doom abilities, but decides to hold back and not take that route. But if this was 2005, I guarantee you this would be a different story. Ultimately, it's Sonic that comes out on top, just as the story plays out in Sonic Generations, taking the emerald from Shadow, which Shadow allows him to run off with it. Rouge, watching from the sidelines, is confused. Why would Shadow allow Sonic to take the emerald, considering his dire circumstances? Well, I'm ashamed to say I didn't see this coming either, but Shadow actually gave Sonic the fake emerald, the one he found on the Ark, explaining to Rouge that she can sneakily give Sonic the real one after his business is done. That's some clever writing and making sure both stories can happen. Seriously, I'm still shocked the stories in Sonic lately have been genuinely pretty good and well thought out. So kudos to Sonic Team and Ian Flynn on this one. This was a big brain moment for sure. After defeating Mephiles, yeah, I did just say that, we'll talk more about the bosses later. The Black Moon is becoming even more unstable. While coming back to talk to Maria and Gerald, Black Doom appears. Maria, unafraid, scolds Black Doom, saying Shadow will never serve him and is nothing like him. Black Doom once again explains, as he did in the 2005 game, that his blood flows through Shadow, and that he is a warrior and a destroyer. Shadow threatens Black Doom, saying that he will use his new power to destroy him. While laughing it off, Black Doom says that he learned from their last encounter, and that Shadow will indeed be his. After leaving, Gerald then explains that even though Shadow may have destroyed him in the past, Black Doom must have grown a new body and is using the time and white space to accelerate his plans. This angers Shadow in a way that we haven't really experienced before, and you can tell. While explaining that he will destroy every last one of Black Doom's forces in a destructive anger, something is clearly being awakened inside of Shadow. This breaks Maria's heart to see Shadow like this. She explains,
I don't want you to be driven by darkness. I want you to be happy. Stand in the light with peace in your heart.
You can tell Shadow calms down at this point, and that destructive energy coming from him stops. Soon after, Shadow gains his last mutation, the Doom Wing. With all mutations obtained, Black Doom himself also becomes more powerful, like Gerald explained. The world at this point becomes red and full of Black Doom's energy. Black Doom, keeping to his promise from earlier, now knows that Shadow is ready and tells him to come and face him so that he could claim his mind, body, and soul, to become the perfect being. Maria and Gerald are bearing witness to what's become of Shadow and how much he has changed since their time on the Ark, with Gerald saying,
I'm sorry I put you on this path, Shadow, but I'm proud of how you have walked it.
Maria, clearly upset with what's become of Shadow, is told at this moment,
It's all right, Maria. I'm letting go of that destructive anger. But I will continue to fight. Fight with your wish in my heart. Your wish for everyone to have a chance to be happy.
Not only did Shadow mention his wish that Maria told him in SA2, it even makes him crack a smile. His second one of the day, in fact. You cannot tell me this wasn't a smile when he found Big the Cat. That looks like a damn smile. All jokes aside, this does calm Maria's worries for Shadow, and it's such a powerful scene, and a well-written one too. With that, Shadow goes on to face Black Doom, and after going through Radical Highway with his new form, he finds him, vowing to sever the bonds between them forever. Black Doom becomes his final form from Shadow the Hedgehog 2005, Devil Doom. Again, I will talk more about these fights later on, so stay tuned. After they face off, Black Doom reveals he too has changed, becoming his new form, Neo Devil Doom, where the true fight begins. After their battle, Black Doom tells Shadow he can't deny what he is. They are one and the same, with Shadow. And with that, Shadow destroys Black Doom, severing the bond between them, which takes away the mutations he's been experiencing. Just in time too, as Sonic is about to face the Time Eater to free all of them from being trapped in white space. Shadow gives Rouge the real emerald. Before following her to help their friends, he races back to Gerald and Maria, where...
I knew you could do it.
Maria.
I'm okay. Really.
Oh
Professor, what's happening?
Without Black Doom's influence, the time anomaly is beginning to heal. We are returning to our own point in time.
I'll stop Rouge. Use Chaos Control. Stop this moment in time.
Shadow?
Oh.
No. I don't want to be frozen in one place in time. Besides, your friends need your help.
But you don't know what's going to happen.
That's
I know I'll see you again. And if fate draws us apart, I will always be in your heart.
Maria. Wait.
That sucks. Damn. Damn, bro. He's crying. Shit, I'm crying too. If Shadow cries, I cry too! Okay? I don't care. I don't care. If Shadow's crying, then it's okay to cry, chat. This has to be one of the saddest scenes in Sonic history. Shadow was willing to do anything, even freeze time forever using Chaos Control just so they don't get separated again, only to not do it because of Maria's wishes. Shadow, frustrated, races off as he goes off to help his friends with tears in his eyes. And he's not alone. And that's the story of Shadow Generations. This story isn't just good or even great. It's amazing, and I mean everything from the prologue animation to the in-game cutscenes, the extra bits of dialogue with the NPCs in the world, and even Gerald's journal. I won't cover everything, but there are interesting pieces of dialogue. With Omega, he talks about proving he's the best robot, even discussing how he isn't like Eggman's other robots, running on a superior power core rather than running on a flicky. I love how after all these years, he still talks shit about Eggman's other robots. He also has an interesting piece of dialogue where he discusses that in a conversation with Rouge, she believes that Omega may have been locked in the room with Shadow and Sonic Heroes, not to discard of him, but to protect Shadow during Neo Metal's rampage. That is actually a very interesting prospect that I didn't think about before this point. With Big is just vibing. He talks about taking a trip to Soliana and meeting the princess, seeing both Shadow and Sonic on the Ark, which, if you remember, he was always watching, and even talking to Gerald and Maria, saying he hopes to take him out fishing sometime. Even though Big being here can simply be seen as just a joke, I genuinely liked his dialogue. He just wants to be a good friend, and it's always nice to see that. He also wants to use chaos control. Rouge is very sweet in her dialogue. She essentially reminds Shadow that he moved on from his past and to not let this situation undo all his hard work to leave it behind him, but also reminds him that if he ever needs someone, she'll be there for him. The talks with Gerald and Maria is... oh man, this gets interesting. So Gerald discusses his two sons, one that loves archaeology and the other that loves robotics. I'll let you take a guess which one is Eggman's dad, but it's interesting to hear more about the bloodline. Things start to get really heavy, even saying that he can tell that there is something Shadow wants to tell him, but he hasn't. But worst of all, when things start to get really hectic in the world, Gerald even says that he has an idea of what will happen when all of this is over. That is incredibly morbid, and it makes me feel even worse for Gerald. I mean, this dude already went through so much just trying to save his granddaughter and knows that his demise is imminent. With Maria, it gets even more heartbreaking. At first, she talks about life on the Ark, even referencing some of the art released by the social media team over the years, like going to school with Shadow. But then, she starts saying that she hopes that everyone on the Ark, like the staff, are alright, and even saying that she hopes to go home soon. Her naivety to her own demise and our context as the players make this such a heartbreaking story to see play out as we continue to play. But it's also an interesting juxtaposition. The person standing right next to her, Gerald, has an idea of what's to come. Meanwhile, Maria, standing right next to him, has no idea. There are other interesting bits as well though, like her discussion of her disease and the mental and physical toll it takes on her. Clearly, oh my god, that's so sad. Dude, this is making me sad. As well as her impressions of how Shadow has changed from the Shadow she knew growing up on the Ark. All of this though is elevated with Gerald's journal, which honestly, every Sonic fan should read. Seeing Gerald's thought process as the events unfolded offer a clear perspective on the seemingly impossible situation he faced. It begins calmly with Gerald expressing pride in his two sons and celebrating Maria's birth, calling her his legacy. He then recounts discovering Angel Island and the Master Emerald. This all leads to the opening of the Space Colony Ark, a project focused on science and peace, though he remained concerned about securing funding. That's when the Guardian Units of Nations, or GUN, steps in, offering funding in exchange for weapons research. During this time, Maria falls ill. He brings Maria onto the Ark to better manage her illness and to work toward a cure, and Gerald starts his research on the Gizoids. Under GUN's increasing pressure, Gerald initiates Project Shadow, trying to balance his research to save Maria while also supplying GUN with chaos drives as weapons. To siphon chaos energy safely, he begins experimenting with living tissue, developing the chaos drives to bridge that gap. As work on the ultimate life form progresses, Gerald experiments with a salamander for its regenerative properties, which ultimately results in the Biolizard, a failed prototype. Meanwhile, tensions grow within his family as Maria's relatives, already skeptical of her presence on the Ark, demand her return, causing a rift. In desperation, Gerald makes a deal with Black Doom, using his DNA to create Shadow under the guise of making the ultimate warrior, though Gerald was not intent on doing that and only creating Shadow for his own intentions to save Maria. So he secretly plans to use the Eclipse Cannon to eliminate Black Doom once he returns. With facing pressure to end Project Shadow, Gerald hands over the Gizoid to buy more time, while he and Maria work on Shadow's gear, including the inhibitor rings and the air shoes. Yeah, Maria designed Shadow's shoes. I think that's really cool. When Shadow awakens, he and Maria form a deep bond, with Gerald seeing Shadow as the key to reuniting his family and saving Maria. Tragically, the Gizoid, previously given to Gunn, goes on a destructive rampage on the Ark, triggering all the artificial chaos to become hostile. Gunn then raids the Ark, resulting in Maria's death, leading Gerald into a downward spiral of despair and madness. Oh man, this entire journal was such an interesting and fun read as a fan, and it really highlights how all these events all unfolded. I also love the small detail of the handwriting becoming more and more unhinged and hard to read as you go along. I love this type of lore stuff, and really diving deep into a story that, yeah, was told to us before, but doing so in a way that keeps us engaged. Best of all, the franchise is no longer ashamed of its past stories. While the story of Shadow 2005 with the Black Arms wasn't landing all that well back then, Sonic Team took it on the chin, and rather than acting like the story never happened or retconning it, they worked with what they had and made a story one that everyone could get behind. It's a story that pulls the heartstrings like no other in the franchise. I feel for Shadow and now understand more than ever his feelings and conflictions over the years on who he is. And now, I fully believe after this story, he now knows who he is and his drive to help his friends overcome any obstacle. A drive to fight for what's right, built off of loss, anger, sadness, and confusion, but more so, to fulfill a wish for a long-lost friend, to give everyone a chance to be happy, and yes, including himself. This story is one I truly love, and one that makes me excited for even more future Sonic stories. Amazing job, Sonic Team and Ian Flynn, for creating an engaging and heart-pulling story to go along with the gameplay, which, speaking of, let's dive into. The game structure is a lot more traditional this time around compared to Sonic Frontiers. Like Sonic Generations, there's 2 acts per stage, one in 3D and one in 2D. Before beating both acts, you are rewarded with a Doom gear. With that, you can unlock a new Doom ability from one of these towers that you'll find in the White Space Hub world. After beating a certain amount of stages, you'll then find boss gates, which require boss keys to open. This is where the challenges for stages start to become available, with 2 challenges per act. After beating both challenges, you are rewarded with a boss key, which will allow you to then enter the boss. Very similar to Sonic Generations' structure. While the format is more traditional than, say, Sonic Frontiers, it still shares some ideas from that game, specifically the open zone gameplay, which we will talk more about later. But for now, let's discuss the controls for this game and Shadow's moveset. Like the structure of the overall game, Shadow's moveset is back to more traditional controls, but it's still somewhat unique. The best way I can describe it is if Sonic Frontiers gameplay, specifically cyberspace, was mixed more with, well, Sonic Generations. To start, unlike Sonic Frontiers, Shadow can boost through enemies again, and the homing attack is here like before, but unlike Frontiers, it's back to being quick and snappy. The double jump also makes a return and is very helpful, along with the stomp and the slide. Now for some of the differences, and I'm going to start with what is probably my favorite addition to 3D Sonic controls in a long time. The quick step has been changed, and I personally think it's for the better. For the longest time, the quick step was just that. Pressing the bumper would cause the character to take a quick step to the left or right. In levels since Sonic Unleashed, it was used to make quick reaction time decisions, and it was great. But as time has gone on, and as Sega has slowed down Sonic's gameplay quite a bit since Sonic Unleashed, these quick step moments, in my opinion, weren't that exciting anymore. But now with this game, they just opened up a whole new idea for reactive gameplay at this speed. Instead of it working like a button, you can now press and hold the quick step, and Shadow will continue to slide in that corresponding direction, assuming you don't slide off the edge. Boom, look at that, clean. We did it. We got it. So now, instead of relying on predetermined paths, you have to manually judge how long to press and when to release. In a sense, it's less automatic now and more engaging, and I love that. Not to mention, I just think this animation is really freaking cool. You can even perform it in the air, and I love what it does. It kind of acts like a button to get Shadow back onto the ground faster than his normal drop speed. The less automated Sonic gameplay becomes to a degree, in my opinion, the better. Automation is nice at times, but this change is very welcoming, and I hope to see more level design with this in mind. Other new moves Shadow has in returning from Sonic 06 is the Chaos Spear. Any enemies requiring a stun can be quickly opened to attack by shocking them with a Chaos Spear. I really like how snappy this is. It's not as clunky as it was in Sonic 06, you can perform it on the fly, and I think it really adds to the experience. Usually in modern Sonic gameplay, you'll get a trail of enemies that essentially act as nothing more than stairs with no real threat to the player. But now with the addition of electric or spiked enemies along the path, it adds a little flavor to the gameplay, and it's yet another thing that I like Sonic Team playing with. Again, more engagement from the player, the better. Now sadly, we don't have the exact Chaos Control powers from the Shadow 2005 game, but we do still have Chaos Control and the ability to stop time. This is a sweet move that isn't just a gimmick like most Sonic games. This move genuinely comes in handy to reach higher areas, find secret paths, and saving me altogether. It's also cool how it stops the timer on challenges and can help you achieve the S rank. Now let's discuss the Doom powers you get in the game throughout the story. First, we have Doom Spear. It essentially acts as a Chaos Spear buff that you get almost immediately. Instead of being able to just hit one target, you can now lock onto 5 at once. Great for stunning multiple chains of enemies, hitting large amount of targets in a challenge, or opening doors. The second Doom power is Doom Blast, and I know just from that name alone you probably think it's going to
Chaos Blast!
But no, this is actually such a cool move that essentially makes any Black Arms enemy into an opportunity to find a hidden path or destroy obstacles. It works by holding the attack button, launching your enemy into the air, and from there you can aim where you want the enemy to go, and wherever it lands, you teleport to that area. There is a good amount of levels with hidden pathways using this ability, as well as fun challenges making this a satisfying move to pull off. Another Doom power is Doom Surf. Anytime Shadow touches water, he immediately rides a giant, Doom squid of sorts to surf across any large bodies of water. He can hit the jump button on ramps to get a lot of height and can spin to destroy obstacles or deflect them back at bosses. This kind of reminds me of the blooper sections in Mario Sunshine or the Plessy sections in Bowser's Fury. It's a lot of fun. Next, we have Doom Morph. Shadow's able to turn into this, thing and can easily move on the purple goop with ease. But unlike say the Doom Surf, to activate this, you need to touch one of these purple spheres. In this form, you could boost, scale walls, and even awake your inner Spider-Man by swinging between sections. Not only that, but if you let go of the swing midway, you can catapult yourself upward. This power is a lot of fun once you get the hang of it, but it is kind of situational, and it can be a bit hard to control at times, especially when your controls lock up after boosting or when you're upside down, though that is a very minor and rare issue. Finally, we have Doom Wing. This is essentially the super form of this game. To activate it, you have to collect 50 rings and hit both bumpers. And this move literally makes you fly, and it is the best thing ever. And you'd think a move like this would just break the game, but not really. Levels are properly designed with this in mind most of the time, and when it's not, well, it's fun to break the game anyways. But in all seriousness, this move is awesome. It saved me a number of times from bottomless pits, and it made hunting collectibles in the open zone a breeze. I mean this. These Doom powers are without a doubt the most fun gimmick to ever grace a Sonic game. It's no secret, almost every 3D Sonic game has a gimmick of some kind. Sonic Frontiers had the Psyloop, Sonic Forces lets you eat a sandwich and it has the Wispins, Sonic Lost World's kick move and the Wisps, Sonic Generations with the Wisps, Sonic Colors with the Wisps, Sega really liked the Wisps, and Sonic Unleashed with the Werehog. But unlike any other gimmick, every single one of these gimmicks doesn't stop you or slow you down to a crawl and break the sensation of speed you had. Arguably, Blast is the only one that stops you for a moment, but it also launches you really far, making up for that time lost. Point is, it doesn't feel like a hindrance to the gameplay established, and you could tell they put a good amount of effort into coming up with powers that not only add to the level design, but are fun. Seriously, huge shout out to Sonic Team for this accomplishment, and I hope that it is the standard for any future gimmicks they have planned in future Sonic games. It's fine to do something new, just don't break my sense of speed, or more importantly, my enjoyment. And I'm happy to say that these new gimmicks didn't do that. They were fun, and I enjoyed them. But good controls and good gimmicks can only take you so far. So, let's talk about one of the most important aspects to any Sonic game, the levels. First we have the Arc, and it is just incredible. The visuals are stunning and the lighting really showcases the power of Hedgehog Engine 2. The music is kick-ass. Gas. I love this remix. Probably my favorite remix in the whole game, honestly. Though it is a really hard choice. There's just so many good songs in this game. It has a decent number of alternate paths and great level design that teaches you many of the game's mechanics, like chaos control. I do have one small nitpick though that I won't lie, kind of bothers me enough that I do want to talk about it, but it is so unimportant and I'm aware of that, so please don't be mad at me. And please tell me I'm not the only one, but as a kid, I was always under the assumption in SA2 or Shadow the Hedgehog that these towers in the level were all connected to the Ark, with the big one in the middle supposed to be the Eclipse Cannon. Hell, even the map in SA2 essentially shows that to be the case. But in the beginning shot, Shadow is grinding away from the Ark, like really far away. It's a cool shot, don't get me wrong, I think it looks sick, but the moment the camera turns around, the towers are right there. Huh. The next level is Rail Canyon, and you guys know me. I'm a huge Sonic Heroes fan, so I'm not gonna freak out or anything.
This level is fucking glorious! The lighting is immaculate, the background looks cool as hell, the Trains of Death are back, and they look sick, the level is super fun to play. Sega, where the hell is my Sonic Heroes remake?
Yeah, so Rail Canyon is pretty fun. The level design, while not as expansive as other levels, is still a joy to play through, and the stuff you can do with chaos control is super cool. When this level was initially revealed to be returning, I thought, narratively, it was going to be due to it being the base of Eggman creating the Shadow androids. Surprisingly, those pods aren't in the levels like they were in Sonic Heroes, and there aren't any references to the Shadow androids at all. Gotta be honest, I kinda wish they went into that more. It was a major aspect of Shadow's backstory after SA2, wondering if he's even the real Shadow. Just a missed opportunity though, it's nothing major. The music for Rail Canyon is pretty good, but I won't lie, I am slightly disappointed with the Bullet Station remix. It's not bad at all, and at times it does sound really good. I just think it lost that sound that made it sound so cool back then. The heavy electric guitar in the original just can't be beat, and I'm just not really a big fan of the dubstep substitute, but I am completely aware that just comes down to taste. Either way, it's still pretty damn good, and it's not bad at all. Kingdom Valley is without a doubt probably my favorite stage in this entire game. The level design is just so fun. A decent amount of pathways in this one too, including some cool hidden ones using Doom Blast. The level itself looks amazing, and the music is top notch. And without a doubt, Act 2 is my favorite 2D stage in this game. Sunset Heights. This was a surprise to see this return, but a very welcomed one. Look, as much as I didn't like Sonic Forces, the level themes weren't bad at all. In fact, I wouldn't mind seeing some of these return in the future. But Sunset Heights was very much a standout back then, and it was such a shame that it ended almost 60 seconds into the level. But you can tell in this, they wanted to make up for that, and make up for that, they did. This is one of the most fun stages in the game. Long too. There's no longer just empty stretches you could boost through. There are obstacles to dodge, enemies that actually attack you, and actual level to play. On top of that, this has some of the flashiest scenes, like Shadow styling through these Death Egg robots, or the buildings creating the pathway in the Black Doom sequence. On the topic of the Death Egg robots, those aren't just background elements like they were in Sonic Forces. Those actually attack you and are constantly throwing rubble in your way that you need to dodge. In fact, this thrown rubble is actually key to getting on a hidden path. Discovering this on stream was an insane feeling. That shit hurts you? What he's throwing hurts you? How do you get up there? What the f-
Chaos control!
That was actually the coolest idea they actually had. But yeah, great level design, great music, and an amazing improvement over the original in almost every single way. Next, we have Chaos Island. And this one confuses the hell out of me. Don't get me wrong, I don't hate the stage. In fact, I don't hate any stage in this game. They are all well designed and fun to play, and at the end of the day, that's what's important. But it doesn't really make much sense for this to be here, at least not right now. Gerald explained to Shadow that him seeing places he doesn't recognize could mean that the Time Eater is grabbing stuff from the future too, which makes enough sense. And since Shadow was in Sonic Forces and was even playable in Sunset Heights, I didn't bat an eye. But Shadow wasn't in Sonic Frontiers, and I hope this isn't an implication that he'll be stopping by the Starfall Islands in the future. As much as I don't hate the idea, I just don't want us to get back in the habit of constantly reusing stages again. But whatever, I'm probably the only one looking super deep into it. I'm just wondering about the implications about Shadow going to the Starfall Islands. But yeah, the stage is pretty well designed, decent amount of alternate paths, and the use of morph ability here is quite fun. The music is also pretty good too, but nothing I'd personally write home about. Again, I guess it's just the dubstep instrumentals and being kind of generic. Finally, we have Radical Highway. Not at all surprising that this stage is returning, it is almost synonymous with Shadow the Hedgehog. This stage is literally insane. It fires on all cylinders, so many alternate paths, tons of obstacles, quick-paced reaction sequences, and challenges to get through, as well as large, vast areas to use the Doom Wings, and this stage really showed me just how fun that move can be. Just when you think you're going to break the level by using the Doom Wing, nope, they planned for it and designed the levels around said ability. It's amazing to play and feel that sense of freedom here. The music is so kick-ass, by the way, one of my favorite remixes in the game. But yeah, that's all the stages returning in Shadow Generations, and while I have no major complaints in the end, I do have one bone to pick with the selection. There is no stage from Shadow's own 2005 game. I'm shocked. Now, I know you can argue that the arc was in both Shadow and SA2, but nah, that stage is well known for being in SA2 more than it is in Shadow the Hedgehog. I do really think this game should have gotten its own representation in some way between Rail Canyon and Kingdom Valley. In fact, I'm surprised they didn't make a Westopolis stage. Yeah, it's probably not as iconic as the other stages, but I don't know, I really wanted to see it return. Even if it wasn't as iconic, people would remember it. I mean, they did have to play it 10 times. Look, they already have a ton of city assets already made. Just use those. I don't think anyone would have complained. Now, I'm not entirely out of luck. There is Sonic Movie 3 DLC planned next month with Keanu Reeves voicing Shadow with a Tokyo, Japan level. And from what we could tell, that one level may be playing Westopolis music in the background, so for all I know, they could be playing with the idea that that level is essentially just their Grand City level. I don't know. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the DLC, and I hope more is planned. These stages were super fun to play, and I see a lot of potential with them adding stages over time. Look, that whole year of us getting free Sonic Frontiers DLC was a lot of fun, and I think that did help in them getting more sales for the game over time. Who's to say this game can't do the same, so here's hoping. Now, as mentioned before, there are also challenge stages, 2 for each act, and these are a lot of fun as well. Yeah, they're usually shorter than the real stages, sometimes only lasting a minute long, but the missions are decently fun to play. Some of them requiring a certain amount of rings, others requiring a certain amount of enemies destroyed. I think what takes these to a whole new level though, is trying to get an S rank in all of these, and in the hard mode of these challenges. For me personally, that is what made me get the most out of these levels. This mode also increases the difficulty of the bosses, which speaking of, let's go into that.
I had to. Oh! These are bigger? Holy shit, the balls are bigger!
The first boss in this game is against the Bio Lizard, and right out of the gate, it starts just like the fight in SA2, but quickly it changes phases and you get something pretty unique. The music in this fight is also incredible, and I love the dialogue Shadow has with it right in the beginning, talking about ending its suffering and such. It's neat stuff. The second boss is against Metal Sonic Overlord, and this one is interesting as it plays nothing like the original boss. On this one, you're almost always in the Doom Surf ability as you avoid obstacles, jump on ramps, and spin debris back at Metal. It's a lot of fun, and the hard mode for this to get an S rank gave me a bit of a challenge. The music for this is also pretty good. For the most part, it's kind of unchanged from the original, but you can tell they added more drums to the instrumental. The dialogue during this fight is honestly pretty hilarious. The whole time, Metal Sonic is just constantly trying to convince you that he's the hottest shit in town. Then, when you try to use Chaos Control, he also activates Chaos Control to null you out and even laughs at you for trying to pull it off. How's that working for you, Metal? Mephiles. Who would have thought he would return? I'm honestly happy he did. He was a great villain in Sonic 06. The fight is decently fun too, but I won't lie, I do wish there was a little bit more to it. Out of all the bosses, Mephiles is probably one of the easiest ones right next to the Bio Lizard. Either way, it's still a fun fight with amazing music and visuals. Real talk though, I actually feel kind of bad for the guy. When the fight starts, he acknowledges that he was taken out of the timeline and is fully committed to restoring himself to it.
I will and restore myself to the timeline.
That is so crazy, it almost borderlines him breaking the fourth wall, but in a badass way. And the whole time during the fight, Shadow was like, Dude, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Right before hilariously kicking him in the back of the head. Then near the end, he sounds so desperate, yelling he just wants to exist, only for Shadow to... Well, shit. He didn't even kill him either, he just locked him away in the scepter for all of eternity. What's it like in there? Now, I do want to discuss the final boss, so if you want to avoid spoilers, I'll put the timestamp on the screen now to skip forward in the video. Just giving you some time. Any day now. Alright, here we go. The first phase of the Devil Doom is nothing too crazy, it's mainly an obstacle course of sorts for some of the Doom powers like Surf and Morph to reach him. The Morph part can be a bit tricky at first, but it isn't anything too difficult. The second phase of the fight though is where things get insane. Shadow deploys his Doom wings, and we start a new fight against Doom's new form, Neo Devil Doom. Now, this isn't anything on the difficulty level of, say, Sonic Frontiers Update 3, but it's still a decently fun fight. A lot of obstacles to avoid, and the visual flair here is off the charts. Yeah, it's not really too hard, but it can get a bit tricky if you don't know what you're doing. Not to mention, the new remix of All Hail Shadow is just the icing on top. I do wish there was maybe a third phase in the fight, something that is maybe slightly more challenging, but still, this was a lot of fun, and the ending of Doom just straight up exploding will never not be hilarious to me.
The explosion!
I do want to commend Sonic Team on something I noticed in all of these boss fights, by the way. They really improved their boss telegraphing since Sonic Frontiers. That was a big problem with that game. Sometimes the Titans telegraphing was all out of whack, but here, for example, they have Metal Sonic and Devil Doom have red shiny eyes when it's time to avoid something. I really like that, and I hope this is something they will continue to do for future fights. And speaking of the future, let's talk a bit more about the open zone in this game. Now, it isn't anything super revolutionary, it really just serves as a main hub to get from level to level, but I do want to commend them on what they were able to do in this space. First off, every nook and cranny of this place has a collectible of some kind, like concept art, music which can be selected in the stages, which is super nice by the way, or various bolts you'll find lying around for Orbot and Cubot, who need all 80 of them to build a rocket to escape the White Void. And man, let me tell you, while streaming I stayed up, going around the map, searching everything and everywhere, looking for every single bolt, and after a long time, I finally did it. Orbot and Cubot built the rocket, and right when it was time to blast off... The hell? Oh joy, oh rapture, the rocket is finally complete. What? Why is there a fucking flick? And there's a little flicky bird, haha, it looks just like a clock. You guys better...
Sorry, no.
God, it's because it is a clock. What? It's a clock. All that work to build a rocket only to get a clout in a timeless void. Now how are we supposed to get home? Turns out, we did that all for a fucking clock. What the fuck?
Sonic Team, count your days, bro, count your days.
The challenges around the map were a lot of fun, especially the hard mode challenges. The timing on these were pretty strict, and for me personally, when the time is really strict, that is when I'm having the most fun. I hope Sonic Team continues to add more challenging time requirements. That is what made level 1, 2 in Sonic Frontiers pretty iconic actually. Funny enough, the challenges throughout the open zone in this game are so much better than the puzzles they had in Sonic Frontiers. Many of these don't stop the pace and are speed oriented. There are no blocks to push or buttons to press precariously for lasers. These are puzzles that work for Sonic and friends, and they should continue to make more of these. This is the standard for puzzles I want in my Sonic games. For a fast character like Sonic or Shadow, this is perfect. Now, when it comes to design, is this exactly how I want my open zone Sonic experiences to be forever? No, of course not. Nothing is ever perfect, and I always want there to be improvements. I'm still holding out hope for the next mainline Sonic game to introduce more slopes, hills, and corkscrews, and all the types of terrain that would be fun to run and roll around in. But for what this is, a small hub to go from level to level, talk to NPCs, collect collectibles, and to play a couple of challenges, this did its job, and I had a great time. Seriously, everything in this game was an improvement. The controls, the animations, the level designs, the graphics, Everything was an improvement on what Frontiers built, and I'm so happy to see that. And I hope they continue to take this formula even further for the next Sonic game. Imagine for a moment what we have here with multiple playable characters and levels as well designed as these were here. Man, that sounds like quite the adventure. A Sonic adventure of sorts. Might even say it's our third Sonic adventure.
Look, I think it's finally time, okay? They have proven themselves every single time recently, and I am proud of them. And they could do it. They can make the next adventure game. Oh shit, I forgot about Sonic Generations.
Yeah, all jokes aside, there really isn't too much for me to say here. Yeah, it's Sonic Generations, with a few changes. First off, you can play the game at 4K 60 FPS. I'll be honest, that really isn't that exciting for me personally. I already had the game on PC for years and was able to do that no problem. But I do understand for console players that is a great thing. This isn't at all like Sonic Colors Ultimate situation either. This is a proper remaster, which it does feel a little weird to call this a remaster. It's more like a really good port, but you know, whatever, I'll play along. But now in the levels they added Shadow Find, which is neat. Doesn't really add anything, but it's there. Another small note is now you can have the controls like the boost and the homing attack be mapped the same way it is in Shadow Generations, which is very much appreciated. And they made classic Sonic's quills just ever so slightly longer, which is fine, I guess. But the biggest changes to the game are, of course, the cutscenes. First off, they are properly playing in high resolution natively. There is no AI upscaling trickery like in Sonic Colors Ultimate. They actually did it the right way this time, and I thank them for that. The second big change is there's now new dialogue in the cutscenes. Now, I won't lie, I never really had a problem with Sonic Generations' original story. I mean, there was barely a story there to begin with, so changing some of the dialogue really isn't a big deal. Though I do have to wonder why. It does seem a bit unnecessary, but you know, I'm here for improving the game where we can. Where we can. Regardless, things have been re-recorded and some dialogue has been changed, and in my opinion, they did a great job overall. The dialogue has some references now, and I personally like that as a longtime fan. Like for example, Sonic now mentions the Time Stones. I already know people online are going to continue those Ian Flynn jokes, but I honestly don't mind these references. In a time where continuity meant jack shit in Sonic games since the 90s, only until the recent Sonic Frontiers, I still welcome this type of dialogue. Hell, they even got rid of modern Sonic's awkward silence whenever he would save someone from the original game. It honestly makes me wonder if they originally had this planned in 2011.
You're a real gem, Rouge.
Wait, what is that? No. They covered Rouge's back ever so slightly.
Damn you, Ian Flynn, this is your fault.
Outside of a few minor changes here and there, yeah, it's Sonic Generations working as intended. There's no major flaws, I had no problems during my playthrough. This is promising because after what happened with Sonic Colors Ultimate, it did make me worried about the future of remasters in the series. But this one was done just fine, and I hope they continue to do this type of stuff for other titles, without having to always re-record everything.
Sonic Unleashed.
But yeah, that is everything for Sonic X Shadow Generations. This game was seriously one amazing package, and while personally, there wasn't a lot for me to talk about regarding Sonic Generations, Shadow Generations was such an amazing game, and honestly, one that I think is worth the purchasing price alone for any Sonic fan out there. If this is the level of quality and care we're going to be getting for 3D Sonic going forward, then I don't have much to worry about. It has truly never been a more exciting time to be a Sonic fan than it is right now. The future for this brand is looking extra bright, and I cannot recommend this game enough, so please, do yourself a favor, go out and pick this up. Let's support this title and show Sega that this is the standard for 3D Sonic going forward that we want to have, and for them to continue to innovate on. The fearless year of Shadow is not quite over yet. We still have Sonic Movie 3 DLC for this game, as well as the movie itself at the end of this year, and I plan to cover everything, so make sure you guys stay tuned to the channel. If you're a Sonic fan, you're at the right place. Now, what's a good way to end this Shadow review? Random explosion?